Yeah, I'm doing it because I got a lot of reading, a bunch of chapters. Not in this one sitting, I've already done some. I've been doing groupings of 3. I'm just saying, you probably noticed it's the same night, I'm in the same shirt, in the same pants, in the same setting. That's what I meant. So chapter 18, I'm going to be with the rich cats tonight. So back to the Supreme Court, scheduling the cases to be heard on January 22nd, 1973. And it says, Blackmun was so worried about the public reaction that he suggested something that had never been done before, to give his 8-page summary to the press on the morning the opinions were announced. I suggest, he wrote, that copies be given to Mr. Whittington for distribution to the press if any reporters desire it. It will be, in effect, a transcript of what I will say, and there should be at least some reason for the press not going all the way off the deep end. It says the arguments, I believe this is oral arguments, started right after the lunch break on January 15th, hours after the 4 Cubans had entered their guilty pleas. Then back to the peace negotiations. Even though, got a striped hair here somewhere. Don't you hate when hairs like itch your face? Said even though the bombings had ceased in North Vietnam, there was renewed action on the Ho Chi Minh Trail and Cambodia. Continuing. And there was a volley of letters back and forth between Thieu and Nixon, with Thieu really desperately attempting to gain some concessions even more in the settlement and to save face. But everyone viewed the peace settlement as an inevitability with or without South Vietnam's cooperation. Now back to the Watergate issue. After Howard Hunt was released on bail, he said, anything I may have done, I did for what I believed to be in the best interest of my country. And Nixon was pretty firm on getting him clemency. It said, he was talking about Hunt here. Nixon said, we'll build that son of a bitch up like nobody's business. We'll have Buckley write a column and say, you know, that he should have clemency if you've given 18 years of service to your country. And then he ended up being on the firing line with Buckley, Hunt did. And on cue, Buckley built up Hunt's long service to his country, and he also made it appear that Hunt was working for the CIA during Watergate. And then Buckley, it says here, in classic Buckley speak, well, what about the suspicion that has been widely ventilated that experience, especially lifelong experience with the CIA, teaches a person to forget about the legal impediments that lie between him and the accomplishment of a mission that he seeks to achieve. In the grown-up world, as I understand it, everybody recognizes that it's illegal for a CIA operative to work in Cuba, and it's illegal for a Cuban operative to work in the United States. But they both do it. So basically just following orders and being in the CIA brainwashes you into forgetting that there's laws in this country, apparently. And he said, is it fair to say that in approaching the Watergate business, you and your associates approached it in the spirit of a CIA operation? And it's winding towards inaugural night for Nixon as well, with the evening before the inauguration being various concerts and dinners and the like. Now, next chapter, 19. In our own lives, let each of us ask, not just what the government will do for me, but what I can do for myself, which is a line from Nixon's inaugural speech, which, although it sounds quite libertarian, I think we know from reading Nolan's missives on this that the LP certainly didn't take it that way and didn't trust him and didn't see any movement towards freedom. So this chapter starts with enthusiasm for the young people that were part of the musicians at the various concerts without really recognizing how many young people were at the peace concert / rally across town. And Nixon's plans that once peace is achieved, he wanted to get even on his opponents. Now, in his inaugural speech, it says his main thrust was not about American power, but its limitations. That sounds very libertarian. A person can be expected to act responsibly only if he has responsibility. This is human nature. So let us encourage individuals at home and nations abroad to do more for themselves, to decide more for themselves. Let us locate responsibility in more places. Nixon was the anti-Kennedy. He even purposely appropriated John Kennedy's line, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country," and twisted it to his own. In our own lives, Nixon wrote, let us each ask not just what will government do for me, but for what I can do for myself. Now, the author of this book really shows his anti-libertarian biases here, calling such thoughts the me generation. And now perhaps he's drawing on other facts that I don't see in this book. Perhaps I'm missing historical context. It says that for some reason, strange given the underlying bitterness towards poor black Americans and civil rights in his inaugural speech, Nixon wanted to connect with Lincoln on the morning of his second inauguration. I didn't see bigotry in his speech, but again, I could be disconnected, and I'm certainly quite exhausted right now because I've been suffering with persistent insomnia. Now, with Theo in Vietnam, his demands got reduced down to 2, one of which would be able to be resolved, and that's limiting the amount of firepower that the South Vietnamese police could carry. But the other was unresolvable, and that was removing North Vietnamese presence from South Vietnam. And Theo did eventually just cave on it all, but did it in such a way that he was able to maintain cultural customs of saving face. Then, on the evening after his inaugural speech, actually it was the week following, and it says Nixon's schedule doesn't reflect whether he watched Howard Hunt on William Buckley's show. It's doubtful that he did. But it says, but one thing he should have noticed on Inauguration Day was a harbinger. More than half of Congress did not show for the swearing-in testimony, including all but one of the 15 black House members. George McGovern was conspicuously out of the country, delivering a scathing speech in Oxford, England. He warned that liberals needed to resurrect Congress if the country was to escape one-man rule by the current occupant of the White House. But it was the absence of North Carolina Senator Sam Ervin, future chair of the Senate Watergate Committee, that should have caused Nixon and his advisors to pause. The storm had gathered. January 22nd, 1973 was finally at hand.